Today we are discussing an important topic that continues to generate significant debate among Iraqi dinar followers around the world. The discussion revolves around the meaning of a redenomination, the deletion of zeros, and why officials sometimes emphasize that citizens inside Iraq should not expect to become richer, simply because a new series of banknotes is introduced. This is one of the most misunderstood subjects in the Iraqi currency conversation, and in today's analysis we will carefully examine what these statements actually mean, why they matter, and what they could imply for Iraq's ongoing monetary and banking reforms. The information being discussed suggests that Iraqi television explained the currency project as a redenomination rather than a revaluation. According to the statements, citizens were told that they would not lose money during the process, but they also would not suddenly gain purchasing power, simply because new notes replace old ones. Officials reportedly described the process as largely an accounting exercise, designed to simplify transactions, rather than instantly create wealth. This distinction is extremely important, because the words redenomination and revaluation are often confused, even though they describe two very different monetary events. A redenomination changes the face value of currency units by removing zeros or introducing a new currency scale. A revaluation, on the other hand, refers to an increase in the official exchange rate of a currency under a managed exchange rate system. While these concepts can sometimes occur close together in certain countries, they are not automatically the same event, nor does one necessarily guarantee the other. When Iraqi officials speak about deleting the zeros, they have historically explained that the objective is to simplify financial transactions, reduce the need to handle very large numbers in everyday commerce, improve accounting efficiency, modernize payment systems, and enhance public confidence in the national currency. None of those objectives automatically mean that every Iraqi citizen suddenly becomes wealthier overnight. To better understand this concept, imagine someone holding 1 million Iraqi dinars before a redenomination. If 3 zeros were removed from the currency, that individual might instead hold 1,000 new dinars. Although the numerical figure appears smaller, the purchasing power remains exactly the same if prices, salaries, bank deposits, loans, and contracts are all converted proportionally. A loaf of bread that previously cost 1,000 old dinars might cost 1 new dinar after the conversion. The citizen has not lost money, nor has the citizen gained additional wealth, simply because the number printed on the banknote has changed. This is precisely why officials often describe redenomination as an accounting process. Banks, government agencies, businesses, tax records, contracts, pensions, wages, and financial statements all need to be converted consistently. The accounting systems change, but the relative purchasing power remains unchanged if the conversion is executed properly. For Iraqi citizens, this explanation is intended to reduce unnecessary concern. Currency reforms can create uncertainty, especially among populations that remember periods of inflation or economic instability. By emphasizing that citizens will neither lose nor gain purchasing power solely because of the redenomination, authorities attempt to reassure the public that savings, salaries, and financial obligations remain protected throughout the conversion process. Another important point mentioned in the discussion is the warning against confusing the deletion of zeros with immediate expectations of a revaluation. This caution reflects a broader communication strategy that central banks around the world frequently use during monetary reforms. Policymakers generally prefer that citizens understand the practical aspects of currency replacement, rather than speculate about exchange rate movements. From a financial perspective, this approach serves several purposes. First, it reduces the possibility of panic buying, speculative trading, or irrational expectations. Second, it helps businesses prepare operationally for changes in cash handling, accounting software, price labeling, and banking procedures. Third, it encourages citizens to focus on maintaining confidence in the financial system, rather than chasing rumors. It is also worth considering why the discussion may differ, depending on the intended audience. Domestic communication focuses primarily on everyday economic life inside Iraq. Iraqi families need to understand how salaries, pensions, utility bills, grocery prices, taxes, and banking services will function if a redenomination occurs. Their immediate concern is practical rather than speculative. International observers, however, often approach Iraqi currency discussions from a completely different perspective. Many foreign audiences focus on exchange rates, investment implications, and Iraq's broader economic reforms. As a result, statements made for domestic audiences are sometimes interpreted differently outside the country than they were originally intended. This difference in perspective is one reason why headlines or television comments can occasionally generate confusion. A message designed to reassure Iraqi consumers may be interpreted internationally as evidence, either supporting or rejecting broader currency reform expectations. In reality, policymakers often have different communication priorities, depending on whether they are addressing domestic economic stability or international financial markets. The reference to officials discussing examples only within Iraq, rather than examples outside the country, also deserves careful analysis. Governments typically tailor public messaging to domestic needs. Explaining how everyday transactions will function inside Iraq is naturally more relevant for local audiences than discussing how foreign exchange markets may react internationally. Domestic viewers want answers to practical questions. Will my salary change? Will my savings remain safe? Will prices increase? Will my mortgage or loan be adjusted fairly? Can I continue using my bank account without interruption? These are the questions that matter most to ordinary citizens, and government communication generally focuses on providing reassurance regarding those issues. For Iraqi Dinar followers around the world, however, the broader economic picture remains equally important. Iraq has spent years implementing banking reforms, strengthening regulatory oversight, improving compliance with international financial standards, expanding electronic payment systems, modernizing anti-money laundering controls, and encouraging greater participation in the formal banking sector. These structural reforms are often viewed as long-term foundations for economic development, rather than isolated policy decisions. Currency reform, if undertaken, would represent only one component of a much larger modernization effort. Sustainable currency confidence depends on multiple factors, including inflation control, fiscal discipline, foreign exchange reserves, oil revenue management, political stability, banking sector resilience, and investor confidence. Looking at international experience, many countries that introduced redenominations did so after achieving relative macroeconomic stability. Governments generally prefer to simplify currencies when inflation is under control, rather than during periods of severe economic volatility. A successful redenomination, therefore, often reflects confidence in broader economic management, rather than acting as a substitute for it. For Iraq, maintaining monetary stability remains one of the primary responsibilities of the central bank. Exchange rate management, inflation control, banking supervision, and payment system modernization all contribute to confidence in the national currency. A redenomination, if implemented, would likely require careful coordination between multiple government institutions to ensure a smooth transition. One reason policymakers repeatedly emphasize that citizens will not lose money is to prevent unnecessary cash withdrawals or disruptions to the banking system. Confidence is one of the most valuable assets any financial system possesses. If households believe their savings are protected, they are less likely to engage in panic-driven behavior. Similarly, clarifying that citizens should not expect instant wealth helps prevent unrealistic expectations that could otherwise undermine public trust if those expectations are not fulfilled. Responsible monetary communication requires balancing optimism about reforms with realistic explanations of what specific policy measures actually accomplish. Another aspect worth considering is the role of accounting in a modern economy. Large numerical values create practical challenges for businesses, banks, retailers, government agencies, and consumers. Cash registers, invoices, accounting software, payroll systems, tax records, and financial reports all become more cumbersome when very large numbers are used routinely. Removing zeros can simplify bookkeeping, reduce calculation errors, improve payment efficiency, and make financial reporting easier to understand. These operational improvements may appear technical, but over time they contribute to greater efficiency across the economy. Digital banking also benefits from simplified currency structures. Electronic payments, mobile banking, automated accounting, and financial software become easier to manage when currency denominations are streamlined. As Iraq continues expanding digital financial services, these operational considerations become increasingly relevant. From a business perspective, Companies operating inside Iraq would likely devote considerable effort to updating accounting systems, revising price displays, retraining employees, modifying contracts, and coordinating with banks. Such preparations require careful planning and clear public communication to minimize disruption. Consumers would also need time to become familiar with the new currency format. During many historical redenominations, governments allowed both old and new banknotes to circulate together for a transitional period, while educating the public about conversion ratios. Public awareness campaigns played an essential role in reducing confusion and maintaining confidence. For international observers, separating operational currency reform from exchange rate policy remains essential. Exchange rate decisions depend on broader macroeconomic conditions, external balances, reserve management, monetary policy objectives, and international financial considerations. These decisions are generally evaluated independently from the mechanical process of replacing banknotes or removing zeros. This is why analysts often caution against drawing immediate conclusions from isolated public statements. One television discussion cannot fully define future monetary policy. Instead, observers should evaluate official communications alongside economic indicators such as inflation, fiscal performance, foreign reserves, banking sector reforms, and central bank policy announcements. The Iraqi economy continues evolving through ongoing institutional reforms aimed at strengthening financial governance and improving economic resilience. Banking modernization, enhanced payment infrastructure, improved regulatory standards, and increased transparency all contribute to long-term confidence in the financial system. Oil revenues remain an important source of government income, but diversification efforts continue receiving attention as Iraq seeks broader economic development. Strengthening private sector activity, improving investment conditions, expanding non-oil industries, and modernizing financial institutions remain long-term priorities. Within this broader framework, discussions surrounding redenomination should be viewed as one element of monetary modernization rather than an isolated event. Whether implemented immediately or at a later stage, such reforms typically require extensive preparation, public education, legislative coordination, banking system readiness, and operational planning. Investors and currency followers should therefore distinguish between structural reforms and speculative narratives. Responsible analysis focuses on official policy developments, measurable economic indicators, and confirmed institutional actions rather than assumptions based solely on individual television remarks. The reported television comments highlight an important educational objective. Citizens are being encouraged to understand that changing the numerical appearance of money does not automatically change real economic value. Purchasing power depends on the broader economy, productivity, inflation, wages, and overall financial stability, not merely the number printed on a banknote. This understanding is fundamental to sound economic literacy. Whether using old denominations or new ones, the underlying value of goods, services, incomes, and savings remains tied to the overall strength of the economy. Looking ahead, Iraqi dinar followers should continue monitoring official communications from the relevant monetary authorities, while paying close attention to broader economic reforms. Developments involving banking modernization, fiscal policy, inflation trends, reserve management, payment system improvements, and economic diversification all provide valuable context for understanding the direction of Iraq's financial sector. Short-term, discussions like these may help reduce public confusion by clarifying what a redenomination is designed to accomplish. Clear communication can strengthen confidence, improve public understanding, and support orderly implementation if currency reforms eventually move forward. Long-term, successful monetary reform depends not only on the technical process of introducing new banknotes, but also on maintaining economic stability, institutional credibility, banking sector strength, and sustained investor confidence. These foundations ultimately determine whether monetary reforms contribute positively to economic development. For viewers following Iraqi dinar developments, today's discussion serves as an important reminder that terminology matters. Redenomination, deletion of zeros, exchange rate policy, and broader monetary reforms each have distinct meanings. Understanding those differences allows investors, analysts, and ordinary citizens alike to interpret future developments more accurately and avoid confusion created by oversimplified narratives. As always, the most reliable approach is to evaluate developments patiently, rely on official information, and consider the wider economic environment, rather than focusing on any single statement in isolation. Iraq's financial reforms continue to be a long-term process, involving multiple institutions and policy objectives, and each development should be understood within that broader context. Thank you for watching today's Iraqi Dinar News Update. If you appreciate responsible, factual, and balanced coverage of Iraqi Dinar developments and Iraq's economy, be sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video, so you never miss future updates. Remember, this content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. It should not be considered financial, investment, or legal advice, and viewers should conduct their own research and consult qualified financial professionals before making any investment decisions.